Within the first 60 minutes alone, Seoul, the economic heart of Asia, with over 10 million people, could be completely erased from the world map before a single defense system can respond. This is not a science fiction scenario, but a brutal reality lying dormant along the 38th parallel. 10,000 long-range artillery pieces and multiple rocket launchers of North Korea are already loaded, carefully concealed inside reinforced mountain tunnels, waiting for a single signal to unleash a rain of steel upon their enemy. When the sea of fire truly erupts, the U.S. President in the White House faces the most horrifying decision in history. Watch a strategic ally collapse into ashes, or break an 85-year nuclear taboo by launching a tactical nuclear strike to decapitate the enemy's firepower. One wrong decision at this moment would not only kill millions, but could trigger the annihilation of all humanity. The Korean Peninsula is locked in the biting cold of late winter. At the demilitarized zone, the DMZ, thick fog blankets the barren forests, concealing over 1 million soldiers, staring at one another through rifle scopes. Seoul, a hyper-modern metropolis less than 50 kilometers away, still sleeps beneath dazzling neon lights, completely unaware that the scythe of death has been sharpened at its throat. The first warning does not come from gunfire, but from a satellite thermal image sent to the Combined Forces Command, CFC, at Tre, Null A. Infrared sensors aboard U.S. Cons reconnaissance satellites suddenly detect a surge of abnormal heat signatures along the northern border. This is not natural heat. It is the signature of thousands of artillery barrels having their thermal insulation removed, tow vehicles warming their engines. At the same time, signals intelligence intercepts a coded order, brief and chilling, repeatedly transmitted from Pyongyang to Forward Artillery Corps, inside an underground command bunker beneath Seoul. The air freezes solid. Early warning radar displays suddenly shift from blue to blood red. Hidden artillery doors, carved deep into limestone cliffs, burst open simultaneously. Monstrous artillery systems emerge. 170 mm guns and 240 mm rocket launchers all swing their barrels southward. This is no drill. Northern gunners place their fingers on the triggers. Peace does not collapse in an instant. It crawls forward with sirens tearing through the night, echoing from Panmunjom to central Gangnam. The first stage of disaster begins with information paralysis. The moment South Korea's early warning radars detect thermal signals, Seoul attempts to use the military hotline to the north. Only cold static answers. Pyongyang has severed all communication. Simultaneously, an unprecedented cyber attack cripples traffic control systems and the power grid north of Seoul. Streetlights go dark. Intersections descend into chaos. Internet access is disrupted. Panic spreads faster than any virus, through a city losing its sense of direction. The second rung, a limited preemptive strike. Not all artillery fires at once, but precision, 240 mm rocket salvos, target counter-battery radar installations, and Patriot air defense sites along the border. Long trails of fire rip through the air, slamming into key South Korean military positions. Pyongyang's objective is clear. Blind the enemy before the decisive strike. Forward hills erupt in flames. Black smoke obscures the view of optical surveillance systems. Immediate retaliation follows. South Korea's K-9 Thunder self-propelled artillery units, kept at the highest state of readiness, roll out from their shelters simultaneously, firing 3 rounds in 15 seconds. Hundreds of guns unleash their fury in return toward pre-programmed coordinates north of the border. The night sky ignites with continuous muzzle flashes. The ground shakes like an earthquake. A classic counter-battery duel erupts. But this is only the overture. The third rung pushes the crisis even further. Special forces exploit the chaos of the bombardment. Hundreds of aging, and 2 biplanes fly low, skimming treetops to evade radar, suddenly dropping paratroopers over Seoul's outskirts and key military airfields. At the same time, from secret tunnels never before detected beneath the ground, inside the DMZ, North Korean special forces emerge, launching brutal attacks on traffic control checkpoints. The crack of AK infantry rifles and assault rifles echoes deafeningly. Right on city streets, strategic bridges across the Han River are threatened with demolition to cut civilian evacuation routes and sever U.S. military supply lines. In the sky, the 4th rung is activated. North Korea's Air Force, though obsolete, decides to gamble everything. Dozens of MiG fighters, Mi-G 29 seconds and Su 25 seconds take off on suicide, run south with a single mission: to shield artillery positions from airstrikes. U.S. Air Force radar at Osan flashes red alerts. F-15K Slam Eagles and F-16 Fighting Falcons scramble immediately to intercept. The skies over the 38th parallel turn into a furnace. AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles scream through the air, turning aging MiGs into fireballs, raining down over burning forests. But the enemy's numbers are overwhelming, operating in suicidal swarm tactics, forcing modern allied fighters to pull back to avoid collisions and missile depletion. And then comes the 5th rung, the most horrifying escalation, the hour of artillery. Once Seoul's defensive systems are stretched to their limits, the order for a general bombardment is issued. 10,000 gun barrels, from 170mm Koksan long-range howitzers to massive 600mm KN-25 multiple rocket launchers, open fire in salvos. This is no longer precision fire, but carpet bombardment. The northern sky blazes like daylight, with tens of thousands of artillery trails forming a colossal rain of death. The roar of shells tearing through the air and wind merge into a haunting sound that shatters the ears, swallowing every cry for help. Within just 5 minutes, thousands of shells slam into northern Seoul districts. Glass skyscrapers shatter, collapsing like sandcastles. Apartment complexes erupt in flames. Asphalt roads are torn apart. South Korea's layered air defense shield operates at full capacity. Interceptor missiles launch continuously, but ammunition is rapidly exhausted by the sheer volume of targets. Interception rates collapse dramatically. The city that never sleeps awakens inside a nightmare of smoke, fire, and annihilating explosions. But escalation does not stop with conventional weapons. The 6th rung appears when U.S. chemical monitoring stations at Yongsan detect surging concentrations of nerve agents, sarin and VX in the air. Over shelled areas, pale yellow clouds rise from shell craters, silently spreading into subway stations, where millions of civilians seek shelter. Panic turns into madness. Sirens warning of weapons of mass destruction wail relentlessly across the city. With an ally facing possible annihilation, the United States is forced to intervene at the highest level. The 7th rung, the 7th Fleet and Strategic Air Forces enter the fight. From Osan and Kunsan air bases, F-35 Lightning II stealth fighters take off, carrying JDAMs and GBU-28 bunker buster bombs. Their mission is to penetrate dense air defense fire, to hunt and destroy artillery hidden in mountain caves. However, North Korea's rugged terrain is a natural fortress. Artillery pieces are mounted on rails, rolling out to fire and retreating immediately. Behind blast-resistant steel doors, meters thick, U.S. bombs collapse tunnel entrances, but cannot fully destroy the batteries inside. The rate of destroying enemy artillery is far too slow, compared to the speed at which Seoul is being flattened. Every passing minute costs thousands of lives. The battlefield stalemate pushes the conflict to the final rung, on the brink of nuclear war. The South Korean president, with a trembling voice on the hotline, requests the United States to honor the nuclear umbrella. The Pentagon convenes an emergency meeting. U.S. generals stare at a map glowing red with fire, realizing conventional weapons are no longer sufficient. Meanwhile, an Ohio-class nuclear submarine task group, armed with Trident missiles, receives orders to surface in the Sea of Japan and open its launch hatches. B-2 Spirit strategic bombers from Guam have entered contested airspace, carrying a weapon never before used in real combat. The B-61, a -12 tactical nuclear bomb with Earth-penetrating capability. The target is not cities, but deeply buried command bunker systems. At the core, beneath Pyongyang and strategic artillery depots, the world holds its breath. The doomsday clock ticks toward its final seconds. The moment of destiny arrives, as casualty reports from Seoul surpass 50,000 dead. Within the first 2 hours, the White House removes all remaining moral restraints. Operation Rolling Thunder, an all-out counter-offensive plan never seen in modern military history, is officially activated from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam. 3 B-2 Spirit strategic bombers, the ghosts of the sky, receive mid-air target change codes. No longer conventional artillery positions, their new target is the most heavily fortified underground complex buried 300 meters beneath Mount Paektu, believed to be Pyongyang's nuclear command center. At the same time, the skies over the Korean peninsula are torn apart by the roar of more than 500 combat aircraft from the U.S. ROK and Japanese coalition. This is the largest air concentration since the Gulf War. B-1B Lancer bombers, nicknamed the Bone, skim in at low altitude, unleashing hundreds of long-range JASSM cruise missiles. These smart missiles hunt like predators, slipping through narrow valleys, seeking out each artillery tunnel entrance, and detonating with pinpoint precision. The ground convulses violently. Massive limestone mountains that concealed North Korean artillery begin to collapse under the power of heavy bunker buster bombs. GBU 57 seconds, each weighing over 14 tons, plunge from the stratosphere, drilling 60 meters into the earth before detonation, creating artificial earthquakes exceeding magnitude. 3. Burying thousands of artillery pieces and crews deep inside the mountains, but a wounded beast is the most dangerous. Sensing annihilation approaching, Pyongyang's leadership decides to unleash its final strike, choosing the nuclear option. Early warning satellites of the U.S. infrared SBIRS system scream alarms inside the Pentagon. At launch site number 2 and on mobile launchers near the Chinese border, massive silo doors swing open. 5 intercontinental ballistic missiles, Hwasong-17 monsters with MIRV warheads, rise onto their launch rails. Their targets are no longer Seoul, but Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. Simultaneously, dozens of KN-23 short-range ballistic missiles armed with chemical and biological warheads are launched en masse toward U.S. air bases in Japan and the port of Busan to sever reinforcement routes. The skies of Northeast Asia become a chaotic firestorm. THAAD missile defense systems in Seongju and Aegis-equipped destroyers in the Sea of Japan open fire simultaneously. SM-3 and SM-6 interceptor missiles streak into the sky at hypersonic speed, seeking incoming warheads. Blinding explosions erupt in the upper atmosphere, forming blinding but deadly flashes of light, scattering radioactive debris across the ground and toxic chemical agents. 1 KN-23 missile slips through the defense net and impacts near Osan Air Base. Though it does not directly hit the runway, its VX-filled warhead disperses into the surrounding area, causing hundreds of soldiers and technical personnel to collapse in agony, foaming at the mouth and convulsing, the situation hanging by a thread. The U.S. President is informed that Hwasong-17 missiles, armed with nuclear warheads, have begun liquid fuel loading and will launch in less than 15 minutes. Conventional bombs cannot penetrate command bunkers, buried deep beneath the mountains to stop the launch order. And cruise missiles are simply too slow. Only one option remains. An option that will forever change human history. Authorization granted for the use of the B-60 on a -12. Nuclear authority confirmed. The order from the U.S. President echoes in the pilot's headset. Aboard B, two-spirit call sign, Death Shadow, the stealth bomber, flying at 15,000 meters over North Korean airspace, opens its weapons bay. Not a rain of bombs, but a single diamond-shaped object nearly 4 meters long drops from the rack. The next generation B-60-12 tactical nuclear bomb, with adjustable yield, plunges downward. Its target, the central command bunker beneath Mount Paektu. Inertial navigation combined with GPS guides the weapon straight into the mountainside with absolute precision. The rear rocket motor ignites, accelerating the bomb to hypersonic speed, allowing it to drill into the hardest granite on Earth. 1 second, 2 seconds. 3 seconds of silence fill the B-2 cockpit. And then the Earth explodes. There is no towering mushroom cloud reaching the ionosphere, like in Hollywood films. This is an underground nuclear detonation, with a yield equivalent to 50,000 tons of TNT compressed inside the mountain, creating a horrific hydraulic crushing effect. Mount Paektu shudders, then its summit collapses, as if crushed by a giant invisible hand. Shockwaves propagate through geological layers, shattering every reinforced concrete structure, crushing all life inside the underground complex. And most critically, severing the signal lines that activate intercontinental ballistic missiles. On the surface, Hwasong-17 launch vehicles are thrown violently aside, toppling over. Leaking liquid fuel meets electrical sparks, triggering catastrophic chain explosions directly at the launch sites. The threat of a nuclear strike on the United States is extinguished at the last possible moment. But the price is absolute terror. Despite being underground, the shockwave reawakens the dormant Paektu volcano. Magma begins to erupt. Ash clouds spread across the Korean peninsula. Seoul, though spared total annihilation, now sinks into darkness. Ruins and fear of radioactive fallout drifting south on northern winds spreads relentlessly. On radar screens at the Combined Forces Command headquarters, the red dots, representing North Korean artillery, fade almost completely. A deadly silence blankets the battlefield. But this is not peace. It is the stillness of a grave. The world realizing in shock that humanity has opened Pandora's box of nuclear weapons for the first time since 1945. Dawn rises over the Korean peninsula, illuminating columns of black smoke rising from the ruins of Seoul and the shattered crater of Mount Paektu. Operation Rolling Thunder has succeeded in neutralizing Pyongyang's doomsday strike capabilities. But the cost is the collapse of a world order that endured for 85 years. America's use of tactical nuclear weapons, even in self-defense, has shattered humanity's final psychological restraint against nuclear war. China immediately mobilizes 300,000 troops toward the Yalu River border, while Russia places its entire strategic missile forces. Maximum alert. There are no buffers left. No remaining restraint. The great powers now understand the line between deterrence and real war has vanished. Pandora's nuclear box has been opened. And from this moment on, any minor border conflict anywhere in the world now carries the seeds of global annihilation.